All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra's lair. I'm your host, Larry, and we're back for another indie game jam here today, doing some coverage of all of the different games that were entered into the musical game jam. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this jam, it just happened about 5 days ago, and the premise of this jam is it's open to everybody with less stringent rules than, say, Ludum Dare, in that every game that gets submitted has to have some musical component. Preferably, I would imagine, one that ties directly into the gameplay, but it's certainly not required, and the rating categories are the overall quality of the game, how the music was integrated and how well it was made, the innovation, the fun, and of course, the visuals. And the first game that I'm looking at here today, one of three, is HeckOSphere, which is made by WVU Game Developers, which I believe is a school group. And this is actually a group of people. The shader artist and programmer is Connor Haynes. The programmer is Dylan Armstrong. The designer is Christian Meffert, Alexander Sutton, Keon Dawn. The artist is Gabby Dumeyer, and the musician is Michael Dumeyer. And so far, I've really liked the music in this game. And I'll just kind of give you guys a little explainer as to what this is. So this thing in the center here is our HeckOSphere, and we're trying to defend it with what are essentially Pong paddles that I can control with the A and the D key, and various meteors or invaders or little things are going to come in and try to blast my HeckOSphere. And I don't like it when people finger blast my HeckOSphere, so I'm going to try and intercept them with one of my two paddles. It's a little bit tricky to do so this might not work out immediately, like I just showed you. And the longer we can last, the better the music will get. Now, I think if I have one caveat about this game's gameplay is it's really hard to line up your paddles in a reliable manner in time, because as I tap the buttons, these paddles don't necessarily revolve in regular, chunks. Now, you can just kind of game the system by holding down the button, and it just revolves so fast that you don't have to really worry about anything. But I feel like there's definitely a missing component to the gameplay. There just needs to be a little bit more time thought about how this could really play into a Pong sort of mentality, as opposed to just trying to maybe intercept these as the music starts to ramp up. That said, really been enjoying the music for this game so far. Not a lot to say about the graphics. I mean, it just kind of looks like you had some tessellating patterns here that you've got a rainbow gradient rolling over, which isn't necessarily bad, but there's not a terrible lot of stuff going on. If I had to say what this kind of reminds me of beyond Pong, there's a lot of bullet hell shooter games that I've played that had mechanics that kind of mirrored this game, where you could position a shield with your mouse or something as you went around blasting enemies that would allow you to stop bolts or incoming danger. And I think being able to better control that and maybe upgrade that mechanic as you go along in the game, as the enemies change and their behaviors start to adjust as well, would be really interesting. Then, a simple thing to do to kind of up the ante for the graphics, of course, is to just put something interesting going on in the background that we can kind of look at as we're playing around and doing stuff in this game. I don't know that this game necessarily needs a story per se, but, there's lots of different avenues that you could go down, so I'd just be curious what you might intend to refine this if this crew decides to do that later. Overall, I'd say this one's kind of meh. The music's great. I mean, Michael Dumeyer did a great job with that, but the rest of it is kind of lackluster. But either way, nice job. Love the music, and it's a good start to something I hope would be bigger. All right, next up, we've got Beats Rhythm, made by Perfect Sin, and this is a game that I would best describe as not a rhythm matching game, but more a rhythm anticipation game where you have to intercept evil creatures in the midst of their diabolical dance in order to find our way through an ancient dungeon and to rescue the lovely pink woman that we love. Or at least I think it's who we love. It could be our wife, our girlfriend, our boyfriend, or maybe it's our landlord. You know, those landlords, they love it when you rescue them. They cut you a break on next month's rent, typically. And so we find our way through this game by navigating the cardinal directions in combat in order to try and find our way to this evil cat creature here who has, unfortunately, stolen our girlfriend. So yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. Here comes one of the evil creatures now. Essentially, they just hop along these platforms in such a way as to allow you to anticipate their movements so that you can smash them in the noodle. It's kind of like rhythmic magical combat in a way, but my only issue is that it sort of starts to aggressively speed up after a certain point. And then once you start getting hit by these creatures, you start to get punished by darkness. The darkness that is ever encroaching on all sides. Now that's not necessarily bad, it's just times like this here, where suddenly they just start coming at you like a Mach 10 jet, and there's nothing that you can really do to stop it. I feel like, you know, that's a very sudden and aggressive ramping up of the movements, and while I can typically anticipate that given a bit of time and practice, this game ramps up very quickly. So I would say I like the concept. I do. But two things. I think it goes really quickly, first off. And I also think that there could be a little bit more depth to the combat and the overall mechanics. Like, this is just general rhythmic timing as you go here. But I feel like there could be something where different creatures start to behave differently as you go along through the game. Like maybe some of them do like a hopscotch thing where they progressively start to like skip if you don't pay attention to what's going on in the gameplay. There's a lot of different ways that you could go with this game, and I'd be interested to see what you would come up with, because this is kind of like a one note right now, where all the creatures react the same way. You've got mushrooms that heal you, you've got creatures that smack you in the gob, and you've got a good foundation, but I just feel like you could have a little bit more story about what's going on here, to talk about who this evil villain is, why they've stolen our fiance or our girlfriend or whoever they are, and kidnapped them to this evil lair. And then the other thing is you could really say a lot about the creatures that inhabit this dungeon by just illustrating different behaviors, different lore that they might be based on. You've got some different options throughout there. The other thing I'm not sure that I like is successfully attacking an enemy before they can attack you. To me, that says that I shouldn't be taking damage. But it also might say that you could design this game around more of a itemization. So that some of the things that you can encounter is you can kill like a special mob, and they'll drop a weapon that changes how the combat works and how the music plays. And it could all be very musical. Like everything about a music game is always really interesting when you can somehow tie it into additional sound. But other than that, I mean, the graphics aren't crazy, but everything seems to fit together well. And you've got a nice aesthetic that, to me, says, you know, cute, cartoony, and really fun, and a little bit laid back, but without being so complex as to be intimidating. I think if you refined this art style, you could definitely have a very fleshed out game that gives people a lot of stuff that they can do. So, I don't know, it's very basic, but it's solid for what it's trying to do, and the more that I play it right now, the better I'm starting to get on it. I also don't know about this darkness mechanic. Like, that seems weird. Because all of a sudden it just gets pitch black, and you're not going to anticipate a flippin' thing unless you incorporate stuff like positional audio, which might be in the game, but I'm not hearing right now. So very nice job. Be curious to see what you do with this in the future. Alrighty. Last up on our docket here today, we've got Mirai Rockstar, made by Chasing the Dream in Japan, which is the story of a software developer who's been laid off from his job, who goes on the trip of a lifetime to visit a friend in a far-off land. And all along their journey, well, the way that you pass the time, if you don't really want to mess around on your smartphone and run up a lot of data bills, is to play your guitar. And it plays a lot like Dance Dance Revolution, where you just worry about the cardinal directions with the arrow keys and matching them up to create the tune for your songs. So I suppose the best way to check this game out is to simply jump into the story. So basically the way it works is you line up the arrows, you fill up your status bar to progress to the next level, and then you have a score. I'm not so worried about a score. I'm sometimes kind of iffy at these games. But what I can say is I love the art for this game so far, and the fact that it has a story. So here's the story. Daniel Seconds is a software developer, and he also loves music. During the last 15 years, he's been working in the same company. He doesn't like his job at all, but it's stable and it pays the bills. One day he gets a call from his boss. Oh, hello? Oh, hey, Daniel. I'm afraid I've got some bad news. The company is going bankrupt. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, I hate to mention this, but we're firing the whole staff. That includes you. Normally we do this in person, but we're afraid of violent reprisal in the tech industry lately, so we're just giving you a text and a phone call. Well, that's awful. Everything seemed lost. Daniel was really upset. But if you have 15 years experience as a developer, you could probably get a job anywhere right now. But what should I do? But then the answer, another call. It's our friend. Oh, Daniel, it's me, Roger. I'm sorry to hear about your job. You've spent so much time in there. Yeah, I don't know what I'll do. I mean, I could find another job, but hold on, man. Before you find a new job, how about taking some holidays? I mean, you could come visit me in Japan. Japan, huh? Well, I've never been there, and I'm really afraid of planes. No excuse, get a ticket. And bring your guitar. People here love music. And basically, we're gonna go visit our friend in Japan, and hopefully become a professional musician. Which, you know, it's fun. I love the presentation of this game so far. There's great animation, there's some good music in the background. I don't know if that's custom music or not, but it's a tried and true system of telling a story using Guitar Hero-esque mechanics. Nothing crazy, not particularly innovative, but better to do something standard than to try and mess around and do something that people might dislike, especially when you only have so much time in a game jam. Now, this definitely doesn't get a lot of points for innovation for the jam scoring, but overall, I think this is a really solid game. Mostly because a nice story in a setting like this goes a long way in setting the stage and really letting people understand what it is that you are going for. Gameplay-wise, I mean, again, I said that the Guitar Hero-esque, the Dance Dance Revolution-esque system of just matching up cardinal directions with arrow keys is not crazy or particularly new/innovative, but at the same time, I think it's a solid foundation with which that you could tell a story. But my one downside, or my one takeaway from how this game plays, is that it would be really nice if the arrows were a little bit closer into the middle of the screen, because it lets me see all the cool graphics and all the cool animations that are going on, especially when I'm trying to think about things while I'm playing the game. It's really hard to concentrate on hitting those arrows and what else is going on at the same time. So putting those things in a central location does a really nice job of letting me enjoy the art, enjoy the music, the setting, everything, while also being able to focus on the gameplay. So what does this story say? How was it? How are you feeling? Oh, dude, I'm so pumped. It's been years since I don't play in public. People really liked it. And look, you got some fans. Man, this was crazy. Thank you. Now I feel much better. Well, let's go grab some beers. Tomorrow you'll have to play an Chupacabra, and I'll get you a drummer. Wait, what? So I think the other thing is maybe get somebody who's a native English speaker to look over the story and the text for you before you keep going. But, you know, this is really cool. I like it. I don't really have a lot of qualms with this game. I feel like there might be some experimentation to be had in the controls, but for what it is, for what you're doing with it, I like it. I like a game that's kind of calm, with a nice relaxing soundtrack, that has a very down-to-earth, very standard story that I think a lot of people can relate to. And if you open up the story mode to pick from both a man and a woman, then your audience opens up massively to entire new audiences that you probably didn't even expect before. Because I'm sure the aspect of going to another country is something that a lot of people have thought about, becoming an expat from their home country and going abroad to become a musician. It sometimes works out for people, like folks that come from Canada to become a pop star idol in America, like Justin Bieber, or the guy who became a famous actor. What was it, Seth Meyers? No, it was Michael Myers from the Austin Powers movie, was one of my favorites. So I really like this. Very nice work. Living the dream in Japan. I hope you build this game out into a full-fledged game because it's almost there. Like, you just need some extra components to really flesh this game out and make it feel immersive and expansive, and I think you're good to go. That could be things like maybe a tree of choices that you could make, people that you can interact with. You could book your own gigs. You could have different control over where you went and what music you played. I don't know, but there's something compelling about this that I think you should take and run with it. So that'll be it for this, ladies and gentlemen. There's been a lot of really cool games that have been submitted to the Music Game Jam. You can check it out. Links are in the description for both these games and the Music Game Jam itself. I really like all these games so far, although some of them have been pretty bare bones basic, so keep fleshing them out, keep practicing, and I look forward to seeing what folks are making in the future. So that's it for this one. I've been your host, Larry. This has been Music Game Jam, and I'll catch you next time. Bye, everybody.